everyone. Welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. This is your host, Kushalmehra. All right, my guest today is Dr. Mohammad Taqi, and he's back again to talk about, once again, Pakistan. So, 7 months ago, Dr. Taqi had come on the podcast, and we had tried to make sense out of the chaos in Pakistan. 7 months down the line, Dr. Taqi is back on the podcast, and I am not able to understand things again in Pakistan. So, first of all, Dr. Saab, podcast पे आने के लिए बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया.
यहाँ पे बुलाने का बहुत शुक्रिया कुशाल. आपको, आपके सुनने वालों, देखने वालों को बहुत एहतराम.
So, Dr. Taqi, let's start with this. Okay. So, when we had recorded it last time, I think it was a couple of days before Imran Khan, who is now the former Prime Minister of Pakistan, his government was going to fall. And so maybe we can start from there. So, okay, the no confidence motion was set through. The Supreme Court did what it did. And then obviously the votes were in, and Mr. Khan's government was obviously had fallen, and since then Shahbaz Sharif and has become the new Prime Minister of Pakistan, and now there is a new series of events. But rather than me talking about it, I just want to hand it over to you. Please unpack what's happening over there.
Well, I guess what is happening is that we have descended into further chaos since April. And I suppose if we meet again in about 6-7 months, we might be going down the rabbit hole still more. What has transpired is that army wanted to get rid of Imran Khan, their chosen boy, that they had installed with much fanfare as the so-called hybrid regime. And the plan was that they would install him, fix the economy, and from there on they'll live happily ever after, at least for 10 years. That was the Imran Khan project, and it was tied to General Bajwa's Bajwa doctrine, in which he wanted to have some manner of a geo-economic relationship with the neighbors, and so on and so forth. What transpired actually was that it was basically a marriage of convenience. The army has been at the Imran Khan project for almost over a decade now. They formally launched him in October 2011, but he has always been their boy. And in the process, army and Imran have convinced each other that they are great for each other, and together they can deliver. And all these fussy traditional politicians like the Zardaris and Bhuttos and Sharifs and Wali Khans and various other players, they are corrupt, they are no good, and only a lean, clean, mean type of politician can run the show. But when the rubber met the road, the fact was that Imran Khan is an inept man, as a person who was practically handed the government on a platter. He could not run the show. His team was poor, and it was essentially the same chips of the old establishment bloc that the military establishment had put together for him. So that was a non-starter. But when it started to hit the fan, and eventually it boiled down to a point where the army felt that their own salaries might not be paid after 3 or 4 weeks. That's when they started getting flack from the street as well, that, well, you brought him and it's your responsibility. And the traditional politicians quite suavely challenged the army at their own turf. That's what really brought about that Imran government collapse. After that, the army's recalibrated expectation was that the coalition government would either be able to turn the economy around fairly quickly, and they also sort of wish that Imran will go away. And many analysts, pundits, including myself, were of the view that Imran might not be able to stage a comeback unless there is significant support from the army. And I think that's where the army and the pundits both miscalculated. That this project Imran Khan, which was sold in Pakistan's middle classes around the country, urban phenomenon, its biggest and most ardent buyers were within the army. The army officer class is essentially a middle class tied by common economic interests. And they took this whole thing hook, line, and sinker. And there was a tremendous support for Imran within the army, to the extent that General Bajwa was forced to hold these small kacheris and courts within the army, informal meetings and some formal ones, where he was trying to explain to the officers why the army had to abandon the Imran Khan project and what was the rationale for it. But he apparently was not that convincing. And then also within the top brass, there have been Imran Khan supporters, and Bajwa, being in his second term, was almost a lame duck army chief. Now, that's sort of a misnomer, a lame duck army chief. The chief is chief till the last minute of his tenure. But Bajwa and Imran, since they had hobnobbed together, they had a lot of dirt on each other. They have been in this together, and Imran was not shy to openly, first through innuendo, challenge the army, calling them neutrals, then smearing them as traitors by calling them Mir Jafar, Mir Sadiq, throwback to the generals from Bengal and Mysore who sided with the colonial British and East India Company. I mean, that was quite a remarkable move. And now the army was being challenged on its own turf. And Imran had a groundswell of support, not really on the street, but in the social media and in the chattering classes and the urban middle classes. His support was there. On top of that, he consolidated it through some electoral victories as well. So now you had an Imran Khan phenomenon, which was challenging the army, but only to the extent that a populist or a neo-fascist would do. That, well, it's not about recalibrating the civil-military relationship, but it is a gripe of a estranged lover that why have you abandoned me for someone else? I want you to reconcile. Let's make up and get back together. And in this whole process, Bajwa is the bad guy, and what I call the traditionalists within the army versus the adventurous. Imran wanted the adventurous to install him back. And to that extent, he even tried to push the buttons where some of his civilian lieutenants were calling for the army to not obey the orders and so on. So this was really uncharted territory in terms of where Pakistan Army has experienced challenges from. Colonel's coup and brigadier's coup are not quite the thing in the Pakistan Army. There have been a few instances in the past, but in distant past, where the army brass threatened enough that it had to take action. So that's what has evolved over the last several months, and Imran took to the street, starting his long march. It never really got traction. The main traction that he has received is in the media narratives. And he has used the social media as a force multiplier quite remarkably, and trolling the army to the extent that they had to come out and actually hold a joint press conference by a Director General of the ISI and Director General of the Inter-Services Public Relations, the two generals, unprecedented move. And despite that, they just could not touch the man. I mean, an ordinary politician, let's say from what is considered periphery in Pakistan, say a Baloch, Pashtun, or a Sindhi, would have been hung high by now. Even today, there is one Pashtun politician, parliamentarian, Ali Wazir, who's laboring behind the bars for the last 18 months. He has been cleared in every FIR lodged against him, but even today, after the court releases him, they charge him with another and put him away. So it's not that the army became neutral, it only became apprehensive where it was being challenged within its own ranks, within the Punjab province by a Punjabi man, a Punjabi politician. So that's what has transpired. Then over a period of time, other events sort of bolstered Imran's position. There was a journalist, Ashraf Sharif, who was killed, and Imran capitalized on that, and he sort of pinned that on the brass, naming a Director General of the ISI's internal wing, DGC, by name. Then Imran, there was an attack on Imran's Jalsa Jalus, in which he got injured. One person died. He pinned that on the DGC. So these are really unusual times that we are living in. On top of that, 29th of November is when the baton has to be passed on by the army chief. So that remains in the play. Imran has his favorites, and he also has his sort of villains in the brass, who are the senior most general is General Asim Munir, who is supposedly the person who, as DGC, had confronted Imran about corruption from within Imran's own household, and Imran does not like him at all. So this is all in the play. He tried to convince Bajwa and the others to get rid of Shahbaz Sharif government, call for snap polls, new elections, and that has not materialized. On the other side, even though the civilian dispensation led by Shahbaz Sharif has been lacking in a counter narrative, but the patriarch, Mian Nawaz Sharif, sitting in London, he has dug in and he told his brother not to dissolve these. First, he wanted the brother not to take the government because it was a hot potato. Nobody wanted to handle the economy itself. Then he told the brother to dissolve the government because it was way too problematic to handle. But after Imran built the pressure, Nawaz Sharif's position has been that now that we are in it, we'll see it through. Let's stick to it. Army can't do a thing. Imran can't do a thing. Let's tear them down. So that's kind of where we stand on the eve of the transition in the Pakistan Army.
So if I was to understand this summary, by the way, it's a wonderful summary and thank you very much. But so this seems like a war of narratives, if I was to understand it correctly, Dr. Taqi?
So yes, the fundamental issues have been lost in these narratives. Pakistan went through this incredibly biblical proportion floods. After that, we continue to have human rights problems. We continue to have issues about civilian rights, and there's a movie being banned in Pakistan at the moment. So all these issues were put aside, where three sides were playing: the sitting government, the army, and Imran Khan. And Imran Khan's narrative is, well, I'm the only person who needs to be in the government, who has to be in the government, and army has to bring me back. So this is where it is being fought. It is really not even a street battle, but yes, at electoral level, like I alluded, Imran contested 8 seats, won 7, which boosted his morale and standing. So it is not really a traditional political struggle of sorts, where a political party or a movement comes out, mobilizes the street on issues of economy, other things. It is basically a power play in which the army's own chosen boy has gone rogue, in a sense, but only so rogue that he targets a few generals, not the army's traditional role in Pakistan's politics, which is very much still there. Like I said, they just put away a Pashtun MNA on a flimsy FIR. So it's not that the army became apolitical; it's just calibrating its moves.
So what I find very interesting is, I don't know, Mr. Imran Khan has been on a few Western media channels talking about this. So let's focus on this assassination attempt that Mr. Khan claims that has happened on him, and where I think one person unfortunately also died in the attempt. And if I understand correctly, Mr. Khan was shot in the leg, or his leg got injured in the entire process. Now, he's gone there and he said, I have said this 3 months ago. They're going to raise the blasphemy charge against me, if I remember correctly. Yeah, what the name of the lady who was interviewing him, if I remember correctly, was Becky. If I remember, it was Becky who was interviewing him, and he said, I had given names. I'm going to give 3 names. Like, so I'm not able to understand half the things Mr. Khan says, to be very honest. It's very confusing. He speaks in riddles, and half of the time it doesn't make sense. Then he says something, and then from what I understand is like there was this press conference that was also done on the side where I think it was the armed forces, on behalf of the armed forces and the ISI also, there was...
yes, those are the two generals that I talked about, yes.
Yeah. So I think it was General Babar Iftikhar, right? Babar Iftikhar,
yes.
DJ Nadeem Anjum, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So DGISI himself.
DGISI. Yeah. So they did this thing, and like, so what do you make of this entire assassination attempt on Imran Khan itself? Like, he says that they're going to drum up fake blasphemy charges against me and they're going to assassinate me. Now, he never says who's the they. Like, who is this they he keeps talking about?
So I don't think that Imran is actually looking for a person to pin this blame on. This is the strategic ambiguity that he's capitalizing on. He doesn't really want an actual investigation or, a conclusion to this assassination investigation and people to be found. It just helps his narrative that now that he's, in his assumption, the underdog, the big bullies are out to get him, and they wouldn't even stop at anything, and they would try to even assassinate him. Now, mind you, and the listeners, that Imran is one of the most notorious politicians who have used religion in Pakistan for decades. I mean, he's probably the worst. I mean, the state of Medina, throwback to the Prophet's names, actually the October 2011 Jalsa that I'm referring to, when he was formally launched, he actually was praying on the stage. I mean, if you have to pray, you could very easily take a break. You don't have to stand 60 feet high and pray there. And I have known Imran personally at one point. He wears his religion on his sleeve. He makes a spectacle of his prayers. That's how he has done it. So his people have used the religious card in campaigns, and most political parties have. It's not just them. Even People's Party, which is the so-called left of center secular party, Nawaz Sharif's party, they have all used this card. But Imran was probably throwing it out there. I'm not exactly sure who carried out the assassination attempt. The man that they got, he kind of looked like a goofball, not really a very hardened zealot even. He did invoke some Islamic references and whatnot, but that really just does not gel up. Thankfully, the injuries were not bad or even fatal, even though one innocent man lost his life. Imran should be on his feet. He has some wound healing issues going on, but it has just stoked his narrative against the army. And the three people that he named, one of them is the DGC, the Internal Affairs Director.
So now this takes me to, like, do you think Imran Khan has, let's say, okay, just a hypothetical scenario, has Imran Khan polarized Pakistani politics successfully, do you think?
I think Imran Khan, and before him, in 1970s, we had Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. They are the type of populist leaders in very different ways. There is obviously no comparison. I don't want to be getting caught on the wrong foot here. Bhutto Sahab was a league apart, but a populist nonetheless. And he was a politician where it was either anti-Bhutto or pro-Bhutto. He had a polarizing effect. Imran has done that too, a polarizing factor, and very vile one. And I always refer to sort of his sportsman mentality, which was buttressed by the military mentality, where both of them have zero-sum games. It's a win or lose for them. There is no middle ground, which is the heart and meat of politics. Politics is the art of possible, not of having it all by yourself. But this is how Imran has been as a person, and this is how Imran has been as a politician. And his narcissistic tendencies have evolved into fascist tendencies. What he's trying to do is essentially an evolution from a populist to a fascist, or even a Ba'athist-style move, where you actually have the armed forces and armed groups at your beck and call. Mind you, even Bhutto Sahab tried to do that. He actually raised what was called a Federal Security Force, FSF, a notorious outfit. So these are the tendencies which point towards not a democratic type of movement, but a very fascistic, authoritarian type of regime that he seeks. But yes, he has a very devoted following, like most fascists, neo-fascists have had over the years. They keep the narrative very nebulous. Like you said, who's they? What are we talking about? There was this American conspiracy that they just weaved out of thin air. Really, I mean, it was a hoax. I mean, जिस functionary का उसने नाम लिया conspiracy, उससे तो कोई चाय भी नहीं मंगवाएगा बेचारे से. So, I mean, really, if CIA had to do it, Imran is no Mossadegh. He keeps invoking Mossadegh, but he's no Mossadegh. He was not democratically elected. He's not an anti-American in his heart or in his practice. He's just a sort of a fake for-profit. So that's what his role has been in Pakistani politics. Where we are going with how he has tried to drive this wedge into and between the army brass, that's kind of fascinating. Army has not experienced this kind of situation ever. Army launched coup d'etats against Bhutto Saab and other civilian governments in the past, where there was clearly the army narrative and there was the civilian narrative. A couple of attempts where political parties tried to or toyed with the idea of triggering a coup within the army. They were met with swift resistance and they were just quashed quickly. So this is unusual stuff that is happening.
So let us dwell a bit, because again, in the interview, Imran Khan had also made this passing remark, I wanted to send the representative of the American government, I think the Consul General, back to America or something of that sort. Now, what's this? Like, is he tapping into a popular sentiment right now in Pakistan? Like, is there a popular anti-American sentiment in Pakistan right now that Mr. Khan is trying to tap into?
The anti-American sentiment is always popular in Pakistan. Pakistan has been the biggest beneficiary of American largesse in that region throughout the country's existence. The so-called decade of development under Field Marshal Ayub Khan was all financed by the American money. Ziaul Haq's era of relative prosperity was there are CIA documents which actually show how this windfall helped Ziaul Haq sustain his dictatorship. Same thing under Musharraf. They got $33 billion in CSF and whatnot. And yet, on the street itself, I think I've said it on this podcast or elsewhere that there is actually a guy who makes a living selling American flags, which the people buy and burn at the protest.
Yes, आपने बताया था ये last time.
So that is that, and this is. I mean, the leftists have used it, the mullahs have used it, and now a right-wing neo-fascist is using the anti-American. America is the most convenient piñata that is there, and part of it is America's own image problem and how they have gone about doing things. But in this instance, there really was no conspiracy. They picked up a conversation between that undersecretary or assistant secretary, whatever that guy is, between them and the Pakistani diplomat. They tried to make a diplomatic cable or cipher out of it. And then he wanted his Bhutto moment. That's what he wanted to do. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, after he was toppled, he waved a paper, says, "This is Henry Kissinger ka khat hai." And he wanted to pin it on America. So the elephant is after me. Bhutto made a very famous speech in National Assembly at the time, blaming America for orchestrating his downfall. And he was obviously the Ziaul Haq, the support that Ziaul Haq got from America. There was much more to it than a small cable or diplomatic chatter. So, but it suits Imran and it suits any other politician. So he's, by the way, I'm of late been seeing Imran and acknowledging that he has become quite a shrewd politician. He was called Im the Dim for the longest time, but he he has learned some tricks of the trade along the way, and the way he has handled and gone after the army brass, just isolating a few and targeting them, I think that this has been rather skillful.
But we'll come on the army bit, but do you think not only just the army, but he's drawing support from all major provinces too, like Khyber Pakhtunkhwa or the Punjab Chief Minister, what's his name, Parvez Ilahi, right? Like he also has been siding with Imran, and isn't that like a remarkable achievement for a person who was not considered to be bright? Like he's pretty much garnered support. Like even I think the judiciary, which is kind of from my perspective subservient to the military, is kind of lenient to Imran right now.
Very. I mean, they have always been. Pakistani superior judiciary has been the handmaiden of Pakistan Army since the 1958 coup d'etat. So no question about that. I mean, time and again, they have served the army very well. And actually, there's only few notable exceptions, including this April's judgment, where they actually did something which was right. So the thing is that this project has multiple facets. Imran's presence in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, which is my home province, was designed to neutralize the Pashtun nationalist political forces, even some of the traditional political parties, People's Party and Nawaz Sharif's Noon League. So that has been going on since 2013, and that was all with the establishment's help. However, in Punjab, he was not able to outmaneuver, outclass the traditional politician, Mian Nawaz Sharif, who still, if there were to be an election today, Punjab result would be much different than what we have seen in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa or elsewhere. Similarly, Sindh remains a difficult territory for Imran or establishment for that matter. Balochistan has its own political dynamics in which the tribal political culture also plays a big part. Establishment has a huge role, and then there is an insurgency there. So I don't think he's the leader of the four provinces, so to speak, even though he holds governments in two provinces and in Gilgit-Baltistan and Kashmir. But the situation is much more nuanced and complex. Parvez Ilahi is actually an establishment ally. And he has his own calculations because of which he's siding with Imran at the moment. And if push comes to shove, Parvez Ilahi would still do the army establishment's bidding.
Okay, but in so you mentioned Punjab. Like obviously, Imran Khan's major base is Punjab, and the Pakistani Army also has a major affiliation when it comes to things in Punjab. So doesn't this bring a very interesting clash that the Pakistani Army, when it comes to using force, tends to use force most of the time, but now, like, what do they do with the Punjab conundrum? Because clearly Imran Khan has a huge support base over there.
So absolutely, yes. And before that, when Mian Nawaz Sharif was challenging General Bajwa not too far from his hometown, Bajwa felt the heat. It's the same catchment area for all these two political forces, and the establishment on the other hand. There are families which are divided. So army finds it difficult. That's why I keep saying that they have a internal mess at their hands. But the thing is that Imran has not been able to mobilize the Punjab street. Imran has his own star power, curb appeal. I mean, if he would just walk onto the street on a good day, anyways, he would gather as much crowd as he's gathering now. This is not a long march protest crowd that he's gathering. इतना तो पटाखा फट जाए, टायर फट जाए तो लोग जमा हो जाते हैं. That kind of thing. So army is measuring its response. There is also other things at play because Bajwa himself is so tainted, a lame duck chief, that the gloves have not really come off, perhaps, and may eventually happen when he steps down. So there are different things at play. But I really don't think that Imran has the same electoral prowess in Punjab as he has displayed in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa for multiple different reasons. Pakhtunkhwa politics are much divided, much fractured. He doesn't have a very coherent opponent there. The Pashtun nationalist politics have really gone down the drain over the years. The leadership quality is not there. Multiple other issues. So each area, all politics is local. We have different dynamics at play. I don't think that it would be a cakewalk for him in Punjab even today. And if the present government is to continue and pull the economy up a little bit, no way that Imran would be able to have a comeback or not a comeback. He never actually won Punjab. Even the last time he was trailing Nawaz Sharif.
But आपने by-elections की बात की, like those specific constituencies, weren't they like PMNL or PMLN strongholds? Like, doesn't that matter then?
So PMLN had an interesting calculus in terms of these by-elections. They were focusing on certain things and they were ignoring certain things. Imran's lieutenant, Shah Mahmood Qureshi, former foreign minister, his daughter was contesting their home seat, and she lost to the son of former Prime Minister Yusuf Raza Gilani, who was the joint candidate of the ruling coalition. So it's not that he's winning Punjab right, left, and center. He has won seats in Punjab, but most of those seats were either not contested properly by PMLN or there were other local dynamics at play. On top of that, Imran contested himself. The seat that he lost was in Sindh, and then Shah Mahmood's daughter, I think her name is Meher Bano, she lost that seat. So when Imran is not contesting himself, the dynamic is different. That is also another thing. He was contesting 8 seats himself. Then in provincial by-elections, League had a poor showing, but again, local factors were at play, who got the ticket and so on, and then the immediate aftermath of taking over an economy which was really in shambles, gas prices being jacked up, whatnot, and they did some changes. They benched the previous finance minister, brought in Ishaq Dar, who's more attuned to the politics, and improving the country's cash flow and so on. So I think the electoral scenario as it stands right now is not going to prevail 6 months down the road, probably not even 3 months down the road. We'll have to make another assessment at that time. But I'm not willing to hand Punjab to Imran in elections.
So you think Imran basically consistently, to be relevant, has to keep stirring up the pot, and that's why he will have to come up with these polarizing statements all the time for him to maintain such pressure on the crowds and on the psyche of the people in Pakistan?
Yeah, Imran's sense is that these electoral victories, his being the political martyr that he's trying to portray himself as, that he was ousted, conspiracy and no confidence and so on and so forth, that has bolstered his chances. And if he can induce an election now, he has better chances of success than 6 or 12 months down the road. So that's what Imran's game is. How does that election happen? The only way he knows that he can do this is push or lean on establishment to the extent that the establishment forces some of its allies, which are keeping the political government afloat, such as the MQM from the Sindh urban areas, Karachi, Hyderabad. They have a few votes which, if removed, could cause the government to fall. So this is what Imran's game plan is. He just doesn't want to miss this opportunity. But I think he's overestimating his electoral popularity. My own feeling is that if rubber meets the road, even now, we might end up having a hung parliament, but there is no way that he's going to get what he thinks would be a 2/3 majority. Not going to happen.
So okay, so let's talk about this hung parliament. So what happens to Pakistan again then in the case of a hung parliament then?
So in the hung parliament, in all democracies, when you have a hung parliament, then the jockeying for coalition starts, and pork belly bills and ministries and all those come into play. That's the traditional politics. So this is how it will happen. It happened in 1988 when Benazir got a plurality but not a majority, and she formed a coalition government. It has happened this time. So I don't think it would be any different than that. What it does is it allows the establishment to continue to play an oversized role, to control the parliament, to control these levers of power. So in the long run, it is not conducive to a healthy democracy. What it does is it creates that measly government, which is barely able to sustain itself and is not able to focus both on issues at hand, governance, and the bigger, larger issue that Pakistan has always faced, where the military controls the army. I mean, military is a euphemism. There is no military. Navy, Air Force don't do this. This is the army doing. So they continue to play that role, and that suits the brass, the junta.
So now let's get into the army bit and let's spend some time with this. So, I mean, you had to hand it, as you say, to Imran Khan. He's clearly created a divide inside the army. I mean, for a man, I mean, so why do you think this divide is there in the army? Like, is it his charisma, or what reason is there? That are they just fans of Imran, the cricket player, and they can't get over the fandom, and they just think, or they genuinely believe that he's good for Pakistan and he's got the right policies, or what exactly is like? I mean, isn't it like rare for Pakistan, for the army to be so divided amongst who should be the leader?
I mean, honestly, sometimes I wonder, and I don't want to sound arrogant or insulting, but they really are not the most intelligent people, the army folks. Most of them did not make it into a medical college or engineering college or a law school or a business school. They did whatever 10th, 12th grade of schooling, and after that the drills and whatnot. Their strength has come from an institution that was built by the British 120, 130 years ago, and the institutional inertia and the sheer usurpation of resources and power. Intelligence and nuanced understanding of the things has never been their forte. When you, I don't get to talk to too many serving generals, but the moment they retire and they open their mouths, they just are exposed instantly. Some of the people that you see, I mean, these are the people that, I mean, I would probably not give them a kenchi, let alone a gun to handle. So is that a surprise that they are actually buying the poisonous potion that they have been trying to sell to rest of the country for decades? There is no surprise. This is exactly the Pakistan studies curriculum that they have been teaching people. This is exactly the political narrative since Zia, depoliticization of the common Pakistani, smearing the traditional politics, calling them fussy, problematic, corrupt over the years. They have started believing their own lies. This is how it has been. And Pakistani urban middle class, a huge chunk is current or former military families. And there is extended families. Obviously, South Asia is all related to each other by a few extra relations. So this is all in play. On top of that, the Project Imran Khan, when it was materializing, apparently some promises were made, some understandings were made. The General Faz Hamid Chaudhry, the former DGISI, currently Corps Commander Bahawalpur, he would be the next in charge till all this क्या कहते हैं शराकत की हंडिया चौराहे में फूटती है. This it all just hit the fan right in front of everybody, where Bajwa started the process, and recalibration was necessary because it was such a mess. The economy, the way Imran presided over, and then on top of that, COVID hit and whatnot. So it was inevitable, but they were trapped. They were trapped in their own narrative. Bajwa was questioned by these officers. Imran has been saying that now, that, well, weren't you the one who asked me to frame politicians through National Accountability Bureau for corruption and whatnot? Did you not bring all these videos and files and so on and so forth? So, it's a very entangling situation. As khud aap apne dam mein sayyad aa gaya. The army got tangled in its own web of lies. But yes, it's interesting how they would navigate this. I really do think that they will be able to get out of this, but it will take some time to repair the damage that has been done, both to their prestige, the unity of command, the discipline, the way Bajwa was smeared. I cannot think of another army chief, a sitting army chief who was not a declared martial law chief, getting cussed out on the streets of Punjab quite like General Bajwa got. This is a unique distinction that he has. Even Rahil Sharif was not was not called out like that. This is unusual. Even in his hometown, Gakhar Mandi, where Imran had recently had a small protest going through this long march.
So that's very interesting. He's that unpopular, and he obviously, as you mentioned, he goes on the 29th of November, and then what happens to the army then? Like, who is his successor, second? And if the top brass is divided and one man does not have control, which usually is the essence of Pakistan, one man has control over things, and that leads to whatever quote unquote stability in Pakistan. And what do you do then?
So let me first say this, that no army chief has ever been popular in Pakistan, whether a martial law chief or the ones who have wielded power from behind the scenes. Ayub Khan had to rig an election against Quaid-e-Azam Jinnah's sister, Fatima Jinnah. Hugely rigged election in uniform to eke out a majority in the presidential election. General Ziaul Haq had to rig a referendum to become the president. General Musharraf had to rig a referendum to become. The moment they step out of the office, they are really nobodies. I mean, they are somebodies in the term that they go serve Saudis and the Gulf Sheikdoms as security advisors and make money. But no army chief would ever be able to contest election from their home constituency. None have without a uniform. So that is one thing. So the Bajwa is no exception. He just is an exception in that usko jitni gali padi hai, wo kisi ko nahi padi aaj tak. That's unique. What happens is that he is leaving a mess behind. The way the army chief's appointment is being contested, where Imran does not want a guy, there are two others that probably Nawaz Sharif does not want, and there is all manner of schemes being proposed, that you appoint a vice chief, you take this guy, you appoint him today, and he will get promoted tomorrow. So that just gives you an idea that this is not exactly how a professional army should be running. There should be a proper manner of how things are done. In Pakistan, the army has always refused to come under the civilian control. Like in the US, you would have Senate and Congress hearing and vetting. We don't have any process like that. What is there is that the army through the defense ministry sends 3 or 5 or some odd number names, and then the prime minister actually picks a name, and this is how it has been done for years. There have been few occasions during martial law regimes, like I remember General Zia had a vice chief of army staff, General Sawar Khan. I think Musharraf might have had one too. So those are the rare occasions where there's a vice chief, but the protocol is that one of the lieutenant generals they are promoted, sometimes out of turn. Ziaul Haq was promoted out of turn over the head of like 4 or 5 generals by Bhutto. So this is how it usually is done. Right now there are several names in the play. From what I gather, I mean it's mainly chatter that Nawaz Sharif has told his brother Shahbaz Sharif to appoint General Asim, who's the senior most general, and also apparently not liked by Imran. So probably Mia Saab wants to rub it in a bit, and he's holding to his position. And army, on the other hand, is trying to lean on the Sharifs that not Asim but somebody else. So that they probably are trying to avoid a confrontation with Imran, but just by letting the man have a veto over the army chief, that's kind of funny. Pervez Musharraf once said, who do you think I am? I'm not running a banana republic. I think he was talking to one of his Afghan counterparts at that time. The Pakistani Defense Minister Khaja Asif the other day said on a TV show, I was listening, and he says, I have seen the ISPR press release, and that indicates that the army chief will retire on time and the process will go through. Arey bhai, you are the defense minister. Either you keep your mouth shut or you don't say something like this. और बनाना रिपब्लिक क्या होता है जहां किसी को ये पता नहीं है कि हफ्ते के बाद आर्मी चीफ कौन लगेगा. So I think it's very embarrassing for a professional outfit. And I have always been the one who has said that Pakistan Army is many things. They have hundreds of problems, but ill discipline is not one of them. But this is unusual. I have not seen anything quite like this before.
So इमरान खान को मानना पड़ेगा कि इमरान खान ने पाकिस्तानी आर्मी जो उनका स्टेबलाइजिंग फोर्स था, सो कॉल्ड स्टेबलाइजिंग फोर्स ऑफ पाकिस्तान, उसको भी हिला दिया. मगर फिर क्या इसका इवेंचुअल सॉल्यूशन क्या? I mean, is there going to be a coup now in Pakistan?
I don't think so. I don't think that there will be a coup. I think it just leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth. Eventually, there will be a chief. Chief will be appointed, and people will move on. Once Bajwa is trotted out, I have a feeling that army is probably going to react to Imran. They have a very long institutional memory, and what he has done to the army's name is unusual. I don't think that they can forget what has been done. They are mollycoddling him for now, and I'm sure he has his fan club and everything. But there are others who probably would like to get back at him at some point. I cannot see this going down a coup d'etat route. I seriously doubt anything of that sort could happen. There will be a chief, whether it is to Imran's liking or Sharif's, I don't know, but probably someone from among the senior most tier. There is another proposal that retire the whole batch and get from the next tier, but army will have to get its act together if it wants to be taken seriously, not as a fighting force but as a political force. I think it has really taken a good hit.
The irony of Pakistan is that you had to mention this, that it is not a fighting force, but it is a political force. I mean, I don't know how to say this. As an Indian, I find it so weird to hear.
Well, it can run great proxy wars. It is really fantastic at that. But so far, we have not tested the army itself in the battle for a very long time. So.
Yeah, it's fascinating. The kind of turbulence that is going on in Pakistan right now, I mean, the statements that come out, the things that we only see a trickle down filtered version, right? I mean, follow a bit of news, read a few articles written by India analysts and Pakistani analysts, few things here and there, right? I don't know, sir. मगर मैं आपको एक चीज पूछना चाहता हूँ तकी साहब. मैं 4.5 महीने अमेरिका और कनाडा रह के आया. मैं कुछ पाकिस्तानियों को मिला, मगर मुझे एक सेंस मिली. ये इमरान खान, why is he so famous in the Pakistani diaspora? Why do they love him so much?
Middle class. All of us. I mean, when I was growing up, Imran was the icon. I for one, never really cared for him as a personality to look up to. My favorite was Javed Miandad in cricket, but Imran was a towering presence. He had the curb appeal, then he has his female fan club. So that's all of that. And during Imran's peak in cricket overlaps with Zia's era. Frustrations in the society. You have all the Islamization going on. Very few entertainment outlets. 5-day cricket test matches in which Imran, with his 22-step run up and a side-on delivery, is coming on. That he was the star. So wonderful cricketer. I remember the 1982 series when Gavaskar said that the difference between India and Pakistan is Imran. He went through us like warm knife through butter. So there is definitely that. And then he has built on that. Imran has used the social media, telemedia to his advantage. I mean, he's not the goofball that he once was. He has a team of slick operatives at his disposal. And also, all these troll farms and social media armies, curiously, interestingly, were built by the army and handed over to him. Two DGISPRs, essentially, their interests overlapped, and they were on the same page. Many of their operatives were the same. So it has taken a long while to develop that kind of influence. And the Pakistani diaspora that you probably hung out with, they're also the Pakistani middle class extension. It's a microcosm of the Pakistani urban middle classes. And then on top of that, since I'm diaspora, I see it up close and personal. With a little bit of affluence in the diaspora comes this arrogance कि हमको सब पता है, हम बताएंगे आपको, जो वोटर वोट डालने जा रहा है उसको कुछ नहीं पता. वो नवाज शरीफ को, शहबाज शरीफ को वोट डालता है, उसको मालूम नहीं है. शहबाज शरीफ तो पढ़ा लिखा नहीं है, हालांकि वो 6 जुबानें बोलता है, लेकिन इमरान जिसको एक भी ढंग से बोलनी नहीं आती, वो पढ़ा लिखा है, because he's a third class graduate from Oxford. So these, but that's the nature of populism. That's the nature of fascism. It's a reductionist narrative that sells very easily, which is absorbed very easily. Swinging at windmills. Weimar Republic is the prime example. Were the gypsies, the Jews, were they the real enemies? They were not. They were not. But they were easy, convenient targets. So all populists and fascists find that, and Imran has his targets, and then he has his devotees.
So one last question before I wrap up today's discussion. What happens to the Pakistani economy in this entire shit show?
Well, that's the $1 million question. Pakistani economy. Look, I don't think that there is any way around liberalizing trade and expanding the economic pie. And unless the army understands that part, that if the pie gets bigger, their chunk, their share will get bigger. And I think that is probably what Nawaz Sharif's team wants them to understand. Looking for these shortcuts and windfalls, China se aa jaye, Saudi Arab se aa jaye, hot money injection, all this, it works for a little bit, but it cannot sustain the economy. When your trade to GDP ratio is horrible, when your trades with the neighbor, we are at what, 170 somewhere thereabouts, you cannot pull that economy up. There will have to be a rethink about how they go about doing things. Fortunately, in the Nawaz Sharif's economic team, there are people who are very smart. There are people who actually understand this. How they sell it to the army and put it into practice, I think that is what will determine the future course of Pakistani army. And obviously, the political chaos has never suited any economy anywhere. So this has to settle down before the economy will take off.
But wouldn't that be reason enough for all the sides to sit down on the table and settle this mess off? But I mean, if nobody's going to give an inch, like the army is not going to cede an inch, Shahbaz Sharif is not going to cede an inch, Imran Khan is not going to cede an inch, and then you have a devastating flood in Pakistan, which is truly devastating. And then the economy was already a shit show, and then you have this flood, and still they don't do it. Then how are the people going to react then?
Well, people are suffering, but some reprieve has come their way. I think that the current finance minister, he has his priorities. I'm not an economy guy, so I won't venture into an area that is not my expertise. But the macroeconomic indicators and the political aspect of the economy, if it is handled right at the moment, I think they will be able to pull it through. Army probably is willing to give space to the government once this whole situation settles down to bring all this about. They have made their own overtures and gotten these oil facilities and so on. They have their own channels with direct channels with the Gulf states and so on. Imran is not going to give an inch. Like I said, for him it's a zero-sum game. He doesn't see things in a nuanced manner. It's either him and his way or the highway. So I don't think that that's going to change, but the other players do understand that. It would have been very unusual for the coalition to come together the way it did come together, because not only they saw their own political future at stake, but also realistically, the Pakistani economy would not have been able to sustain what Imran was doing. He was quite literally driving it to the ground.
Yeah, it's well, I can say one thing as an Indian. There's no shortage of entertainment when it comes to Pakistani politics. I mean, it's always quite an interesting place, and the speeches. I mean, Shahbaz Sharif and his mic dropping moments. Literally, people have mic drop moments. Shahbaz Sharif does it literally.
Yeah, he's quite animated. And again, that's a Zulfikar Ali Bhutto influence. So everybody in their own way tries to emulate Zulfikar Ali Bhutto.
Yeah, so Dr. Taqi, we'll wrap things up now. पता नहीं देखते क्या होता है कहीं इमरान खान 92 के वर्ल्ड कप के जैसे ये वाला भी जीत ना ले.
I doubt it, but let's see. He's putting up a very good fight in his own way. I mean, I don't like him. I don't like his methods, but so far he has been tenacious.
Well, we'll see what happens. Dr. Taqi, thank you very much for coming. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And I look forward to many more discussions in the future. Take care.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
All right, guys, we'll wrap today's discussion up. Once again, in the description of the podcast, you will see the links. You can go and read Dr. Taqi's work and follow him on social media too. As far as I'm concerned, you know the drill. Please subscribe to the Cārvāka podcast YouTube channel, like this video, and please become a member on YouTube or Patreon, or you can buy the merchandise. You know the drill. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, namaste. Take care. Bye-bye.